My son yelled, in front of everyone, that my loose change couldn't even buy his dignity. He didn't just say it, he roared it, loud enough to cut through the soft murmur of conversations and the gentle clink of silverware. The entire restaurant hall, filled with other guests and the staff going about their evening, suddenly fell into a stunned silence. Every eye in the place felt like it was drilling into me. The humiliation was instant, sharp, and utterly public. It felt like a punch to the gut, a betrayal laid bare for strangers to witness. He didn't stop there. Oh no, he wanted to make sure his point landed. He went on, his voice dripping with disdain, to humiliate me for a lifetime of what he called frugality. He twisted every careful choice, every penny I'd ever saved, every small pleasure I'd forgone, into something shameful. My old age, he declared, was petty. Imagine being told that the very essence of your long life, your wisdom, your resilience, was nothing but he said I had nothing of value to leave behind. Nothing. Not a legacy. Not a memory worth keeping. Certainly not any kind of inheritance that mattered. He wanted to strip me of everything, right there and then. He saw me, I knew it, as nothing more than a poor widow, someone easy to dismiss, easy to control, just an old woman living off a small, inadequate pension, and, of course, some paltry savings. The very savings, I might add, that he himself had helped me spend down over the years. Each time, he'd come with some urgent plea, some grand scheme, some financial tight spot, and I, his mother, always found a way to help. I poured my carefully guarded nest egg into his dreams, believing I was supporting his future. He simply saw it as an open tap, a resource he had every right to deplete. And now, he wanted more. He thought he was entitled to it all, even the dignity he claimed I lacked. As those cruel words left his lips, sharp and unfeeling, my eyes couldn't help but sweep across the room. I took in the polished tables, the soft lighting, the framed pictures on the walls. This was the restaurant hall of the guest house, you see. The very place he chose, the setting for my public shaming. He picked it carefully, I believe, because he wanted witnesses. He wanted to break me down completely, to make me feel utterly useless, so worthless that I would finally just sign those papers he'd been pushing so hard. Papers that meant giving up even the slivers of control I had left over my own life. He didn't want my help anymore. He wanted my surrender. He stood there, so much taller than me, so full of himself. He truly felt like the owner of everything. My very future, my memories, my legacy. He saw himself as the one who would dictate what became of me, what I was allowed to keep, what I was allowed to be. His arrogance filled the space, pushing down on me, trying to suffocate the woman I knew I was. It was a cold, calculated power play, and I was the pawn. But in that moment, as the silence stretched and the stares of strangers burned, something unexpected happened inside me. A quiet, defiant spark. What he didn't know, what not a single soul in that restaurant imagined, was the true irony of his words. The very ground he stood on, so proud and arrogant, the very foundation of this beautiful guest house where he chose to humiliate me, it already had an owner, a hidden owner, an owner he didn't even suspect. And in the silence of my profound pain, Amidst the shock and the silent humiliation, a decision crystallized. It wasn't an angry decision. Not then. It was a cold, clear, unwavering resolve. He wasn't just humiliating some anonymous old woman, a poor widow he could easily dismiss for her trivial savings. No, on that very night, in that very place, with every cruel word, he was unknowingly sealing his own fate. And he had absolutely no idea what he had set in motion. Not yet. The game had changed, and he was completely unaware of the rules. My name is Eleanor. I am 78 years old. My whole life, I was a seamstress. It's a job that teaches you patience, you know? Every single stitch, every little detail. It all counts. And every penny, too. You learn to make things last, to appreciate the value of hard work. I was widowed early, so it was just me and my dear Arthur for many years. He was the kindest man, and we had the shared dream, you see. A simple dream, but one we held on to with all our hearts. To have a little place of our own, right there by the beach. Just a small, peaceful spot where we could grow old together. We saved money for decades. Can you imagine? Years and years. We gave up so many luxuries. Little things, big things. Others might have bought new cars, gone on fancy holidays, or splurged on dinners out. But Arthur and I, we always put that money aside. We were thinking about the future, you see, our peaceful old age, and of course, what we could eventually leave behind for our only son, Liam. He was our world. We wanted to build something for him, something lasting. I lived in a simple, quiet house. It's in a small village in Wiltshire. Nothing fancy at all. Just a cozy little place with a garden. Liam, my boy, he's already 45 now. He lives in London with his wife, Chloe. To me, Liam was everything. Truly, my world revolved around him. Every one of his achievements, big or small, felt like my own. I celebrated every success, and every single time he found himself in a financial tight spot, which happened more often than I'd like to admit, I helped. Always. I'd dip into the savings I guarded so carefully. The money Arthur and I had worked so hard for. I believed I was investing, you know? Investing in my boy's happiness. Building a strong foundation for him. A secure future. I thought I was being a good mother, giving him everything I could. But there was a secret. A big secret. One I'd kept for years. A silent pact, really, between me and my late Arthur. It was about the final result of our greatest effort. All those decades of saving, all those sacrifices. We didn't just buy a piece of land, you see. Not just some empty plot. No. Years ago, with all that money we had saved, we actually built something. We put up a small, charming guest house. Right there, by the beach. The very place where I'd just been humiliated. To everyone else, the story was simple. I had leased it out a long time ago, they thought. And I just lived off the rents. A neat little income that kept me comfortable. Or so they believed. No one, not a single soul, not even Liam, knew the truth. They never imagined that the entire property, Every single brick of it, every chair, every bed was still mine. It was always mine, waiting, waiting for the right moment. It was meant to be our family's great inheritance, a legacy, something that was supposed to bind us together, not tear us apart. And he, standing there, so arrogant, demanding my loose change, had no idea he was standing on his own past, on his own future, a future he was so ready to throw away for a few more pounds. He didn't know the rules, not yet. The guest house was my secret. It was supposed to be our future, but Liam, he didn't know about it. He didn't know the depth of what Arthur and I had built. And that ignorance, it just made things so much harder. Because in recent years, his visits, they became rare. And when he did come, they were rushed. It was always a quick in and out. Not like before, when we'd sit for hours, just talking, laughing. No. Now, it was different. His calls, they were even worse. The phone would ring, and my heart would just tighten in my chest. It was always him, and it was always about money. There was this urgency in his voice, this desperate tone that just distressed me. It wasn't a casual chat anymore. It was a demand, almost. He and Chloe, his wife, they started to change. They used to appreciate the things in my simple house, the furniture I'd kept for so long. But now, they'd look around and call my furniture old junk. My careful savings, the ones I'd spent a lifetime accumulating, they'd dismiss them as penny pinching. It felt like a dismissive wave of a hand, erasing all my hard work, all my sacrifices. That warm, easy filial affection, the love I'd always felt from him, it was just fading. It was giving way to this cold impatience. I felt it every time. A knot would form in my throat, right here. It was like I was swallowing something bitter, something I couldn't spit out. There was no longer a, "How are you, Mom?" A simple question, just to see how I was doing, if I'd slept well, if my arthritis was acting up. Nothing like that. No, it was always about an overdue bill he had to pay, or some investment that had gone wrong, or an unmissable opportunity, the kind that always required my help, my savings, my reserves. He always needed them. If I hesitated, even for a moment, to think, to breathe, his voice would harden. It wasn't a request anymore. It was almost an accusation, as if I was holding him back, as if I was the one preventing his grand successes. I started to realize something that just broke my heart into tiny pieces. His love, it seemed to have a price, and I was paying dearly for every crumb of attention he gave me. Every phone call, every rushed visit, every bit of fleeting kindness. It was transactional, and I hated it. I hated feeling that way about my own son. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. The feeling was just too strong, too real. The greatest pain, though, wasn't even the money. It was seeing that he no longer cared about my stories, about the memories I wanted to share, about my health, about how I was truly feeling. It was like I was invisible, unless I had something to offer. He only wanted to know about my bank statements, my reserves, he'd call them, as if I was just a walking ATM. An old safe, sitting there, waiting for him to crack it open. And with each refusal I made, each time I said no, or even just hesitated, the more he distanced himself. He wouldn't call for days, sometimes weeks. Then, out of the blue, the phone would ring again, and it would be the same demand. It was a vicious cycle. Each time he pulled away, my heart would ache. And each time he came back, it was only for the money. It was a lonely existence, feeling like your own son only saw you as a resource. The woman who birthed him, raised him, loved him unconditionally, reduced to a number in a bank account. I missed my Arthur so much during those times. He would have known what to do. He would have seen through it all. But I was alone, just me, with this growing chasm between me and my boy. The boy I had saved everything for. The boy for whom I had built a secret dream. And now he was just drifting further and further away, leaving me feeling smaller and smaller. It was a constant weight, a heavy, cold feeling in my chest. I wondered how much more I could take. How much more could he ask for before there was nothing left of me? Nothing but an empty shell. And still, the phone would ring. And still, the phone would ring. It was always a question of money, a demand, a constant drip, drip, drip of pressure. So when Liam called again, not to ask for money, but to suggest a weekend away, I was surprised. He and Chloe, his wife, wanted to take me to the guest house by the beach. "Just spending some family time, Mum," he'd said. It sounded so innocent, so kind. A chance to reconnect, I thought. Maybe, just maybe, things were turning around. I wanted to believe it so badly. We arrived on a Friday. The guest house was as charming as ever. The same gentle sea breeze, the familiar scent of salt and pine. It brought back so many memories of Arthur. I walked around, seeing the little touches we'd planned, the layout we'd dreamed up. It felt good to be there, even if Liam and Chloe seemed more interested in their phones than in sharing stories. They were pleasant enough, though, almost too pleasant, a little too attentive. I should have known. The breaking point happened on Saturday night. We were in the guest house restaurant, the very one I had admired so often. It was full that evening, bustling with people, a low hum of conversations and the gentle clink of silverware. We were at a nice table by the window, and the light from the setting sun was painting the room in soft oranges and purples. Everything seemed calm, normal, deceptively so. Dinner was almost over when Liam brought it up. He cleared his throat, a sound that always made my heart clench now. He leaned across the table, his voice low, almost conspiratorial at first. He started talking about investment opportunities. He wanted me to sell my share of the property to him and Chloe, to invest, he said. He had some grand plan, some new venture. It was the same old song, just with a new tune. My share. He still had no idea. I looked at him, then at Chloe, who was already smiling faintly. A a practiced, knowing smile. I just shook my head slightly. Liam, I need to think, I said. My voice was quiet. I needed time. I always needed time to process these things, to mourn the loss of the son I once knew. That was all it took. Just those few words. He exploded. It wasn't a raised voice. It was an immediate, guttural roar. He stood up so fast, his chair scraping loudly on the floor, making everyone in the restaurant jump. His hand shot out, his finger pointing directly at me, trembling with rage. "Think about what, Mum?" he yelled, his voice echoing through the sudden silence. Every single head in the room swiveled towards us. I felt their eyes on me, their pity, their judgment. "You live counting pennies in a crumbling house," he spat. "This miserable little life of yours shames me. What you have saved won't even pay for this dinner." He pulled out a thick wad of 100-pound notes from his wallet, thick enough to make a statement, and threw them onto the table. They scattered, some sliding towards me, some falling to the floor. The humiliation was public, cold, and utterly calculated. He had planned this. Chloe just watched, her faint smile now a smirk of approval, as if to say, "Finally, she deserves this." I was paralyzed. My breath caught in my throat. The world around me seemed to fall silent, except for the pounding in my ears, the hum of conversations, the clink of silverware. All gone. Just the sound of my own thudding heartbeat. People looked at me with pity in their eyes, some whispering. I saw the waiter, a kind young man, standing frozen, not knowing what to do. He reached out a hesitant hand, as if to clear the table, to somehow make the mess disappear. In that instant, I didn't just feel shame. It was deeper than that. I felt the final breakdown, the absolute rupture of everything I believed to be a son's love. My boy, my own son, had ripped it all away. He didn't want my help anymore. He didn't want a mother. He wanted my end. He wanted me gone. He wanted everything I had, and he was willing to destroy me right here in front of everyone to get it. And he was willing to destroy me right here in front of everyone to get it. But I didn't cry, not a single tear. I didn't shout back, didn't make a scene to match his. My voice stayed silent. My body, though shaking inside, remained outwardly still. I just took a deep, slow breath, a breath that seemed to fill every corner of my lungs, and then, slowly, I let it out. It was a conscious effort, a way to anchor myself, to find something solid amidst the chaos he had created. My eyes, they didn't just dart away in shame. No, I looked around. I scanned that hall, the very place he had chosen to make me feel small. My gaze lingered on the walls, whose warm, inviting color I had helped choose years ago. I looked at the tables, the very ones I had picked out with such care, thinking about the guests who would gather around them, laughing and sharing meals. Every detail in that room, it held a piece of me, a piece of Arthur, a piece of our dream. This wasn't just a random restaurant to me. It was the culmination of a lifetime of effort, of quiet sacrifices, and as I looked, my gaze met David's. He was the old caretaker of the guest house, you see. He'd been here since the beginning, a good, honest man who had always treated me with immense respect. He was more than just an employee. He was someone who understood, silently, without words. He knew some of the history of this place, more than most, and in that moment, his eyes, usually so full of gentle cheer, were clouded with genuine sadness. He looked at me as if the pain was his too, as if he felt every cruel word Liam had uttered. It was a silent commiseration, a moment of true human connection amidst the coldness of my son's betrayal. Liam and Chloe, they were still standing there, glaring at me. Their faces were etched with an ugly expectation. They wanted to see me crumble. They wanted a defeated reaction, a broken old woman. They expected tears, pleas, and immediate surrender. They were waiting for me to sign away my life right then and there. But as I met their eyes, a chilling clarity settled over me. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was something sharper, colder, and utterly resolute. They saw me as a nuisance. "I'm sorry I can't assist with that request," about the shared dream that had driven us for so long, and most importantly, they forgot about a document. A very old, very important document, locked away safely in my home safe. A secret no one knew, not even them. That night, back in the guest house room, the one with the lovely view of the moon over the sea, I didn't sleep from sadness. Oh no, the tears didn't come. Instead, I lay there, wide awake, my mind buzzing not with despair, but with certainty. A profound, unwavering certainty. The humiliation I had suffered that evening, in front of all those strangers, at the hands of my own son, it would not be my end. It would not break me. Quite the opposite. It would be the beginning of their illusion's end. They thought they knew everything. They thought they held all the cards. They believed they could dictate my future, my worth. But they had no idea. I had a power they didn't know about, a quiet strength, a hidden truth, and I knew with every fiber of my being that I would use it, not for revenge, not to hurt them in the way they had hurt me, but for justice, for peace, for the quiet dignity that they had tried so desperately to strip away. The game had changed, and they were about to learn just how much. The game had changed, and they were about to learn just how much. In the following days, the phone didn't stop ringing. It was relentless. Every time it shrilled, I felt a fresh wave of dread wash over me, even though I knew exactly who it would be. Liam and Chloe. They were relentless, alternating between these saccharine voices of false concern and thinly veiled threats. It was a dizzying dance between manipulation and intimidation. "Mom, we're so worried about your mind. You're just not thinking straight," Chloe would coo into the phone, her voice dripping with an artificial sweetness that made my teeth ache. It was a performance, and a rather poor one at that. She played the concerned daughter-in-law, painting me as frail, confused, losing my grasp on reality, all for her own gain. Then Liam would get on the line, his voice lower, harder, stripped of any pretense. "Listen, Mum," he'd say, every word a hammer blow. "Either you sign the papers for us to manage your assets, or we'll have to seek your interdiction in court. It's for your own good, you know. We just want to protect you from yourself." Interdiction. That's what they called it. a legal term designed to strip me of my independence, my ability to make my own decisions. They wanted to declare me incompetent, a child, unable to handle my own affairs. Also, they could swoop in and take everything. And it wasn't just them. Oh no, they didn't stop at tormenting me directly. They started spreading their story. They called my nieces and nephews, people I hadn't heard from in years. They called my neighbors, people I'd shared garden tips and cups of tea with for decades. They spun this tale, painting a picture of me going senile, losing my marbles. They said I was a danger to myself, that I was making irrational decisions, and that they, Leon and Chloe, as good, dutiful children, needed to intervene. To protect me, of course. Always to protect me. It was shocking how quickly some of them believed it. Some relatives, people I thought I knew, started calling me too, not to ask how I was or to express genuine concern, but to give me advice. They'd suggest I listen to Liam, that he knew best. They'd patronize me, their voices filled with a false patience, as if speaking to a child. It was heartbreaking. I felt completely alone, isolated, surrounded by what felt like vultures, circling, using family ties as the flimsiest of excuses to pick over what they thought was my imminent demise. The pressure was immense. It was a constant, suffocating weight. I would hang up the phone, my hand trembling, and just sit there, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. The betrayal from my son was one thing, a pain deep and personal. But now it was amplified, multiplied by the complicity of others. People I had known, people who should have known better. They were all against me. It was me against all of them. An old woman, alone in her quiet house, fighting a battle that felt unfairly stacked. Every morning I'd wake up and feel the dread. Every evening I'd go to bed with my mind racing, replaying their cruel words, their false smiles, their thinly veiled threats. They believed they had me trapped, that I was weak, vulnerable, that I had no fight left. They wanted me to break. They wanted me to give up. They wanted me to sign those papers, hand over everything, and fade quietly into their desired state of incompetence. But they were wrong. They were so, so wrong. I closed my eyes, and I pictured David's face from that night at the guest house. His genuine sadness, his silent understanding. It was a flicker of true compassion in a sea of greed. And then I pictured Arthur's face, his kind eyes, his patient smile. Our dream, the one we had built, brick by brick, penny by penny. They had tried to shatter my dignity, but they couldn't shatter that dream, that memory, that quiet connection to the past, and to one person who truly cared. Gave me something they couldn't touch. It gave me a strength they couldn't imagine, a quiet resolve, a determination that had only hardened with every phone call, every false word, every cruel accusation. I wouldn't just sit and wait for them to declare me incompetent. I wouldn't let them take away what Arthur and I had built. They had no idea what was coming, not a clue. They had no idea what was coming, not a clue. The ringing phones, the veiled threats, the condescending advice from relatives who believed Liam and Chloe. It all just strengthened my resolve. I decided it was time. Time to end this charade. I needed a final meeting, a moment of truth. I called Liam and Chloe, and I told them I wanted their lawyer there too. I asked them to meet me in the guest house administration office, the same guest house where Liam had tried to publicly shame me. It felt right. This was where the dream began, and where their nightmare would begin. They arrived promptly, stepping into the office with an air of absolute triumph. Liam was carrying a thick, new-looking folder, and Chloe was smiling, a wide, confident smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Their lawyer, a sharp man with a self-satisfied smirk, had his own briefcase ready. They were certain, you see, utterly, completely certain that I had finally given in to the pressure, that I was broken, that I would sign the papers and hand over everything. They looked like predators who had finally cornered their prey. I sat quietly behind the large, polished desk. I let them speak. I let Liam launch into his well-rehearsed spiel about my well-being and their concern. He talked about how they would take care of my assets, how they would manage everything for my own good. Chloe chimed in, adding details about how much easier my life would be. They outlined their plans, their grand visions for my money, for my future. The lawyer nodded along, occasionally interjecting with legal jargon, reinforcing their narrative of my supposed incompetence. They painted a picture of an old woman losing her mind, incapable of making sound decisions, needing their benevolent intervention. I just listened. My hands were clasped in my lap, calm, steady. I watched their faces, their eager, hungry eyes. I took it all in. When they finally finished, when they had said everything they came to say, the room fell silent. They looked at me, expectant, waiting for me to crumble, waiting for the pen. I said nothing. I just reached into my purse, slowly, deliberately. My fingers closed around the familiar shape of an old folder. It wasn't fancy. It was worn, a bit faded from years of careful handling. I pulled it out and placed it on the table. Their lawyer leaned forward, his brow furrowed slightly, expecting an identity document, perhaps some consent form for the interdiction papers they were so ready to present. But what I placed there, right in the center of the table, for all of them to see, was not what they expected. It was the original and consolidated deed of the Seaside Nook guest house. All of it, every brick, every beam, in my name, and my late husband Arthur's name. The silence that followed was deafening. It wasn't just a lack of sound. It was an absence of air, a moment frozen in time. Their triumphant smiles slowly, painfully melted away. Liam's jaw dropped. Chloe's eyes widened, then narrowed in disbelief. The lawyer's smirk vanished, replaced by a look of utter shock, unwavering. The irony wasn't lost on me, even if it was lost on them for a lifetime. So worried about my little pension, about the paltry savings I lent you, that you never bothered to ask who owned the place where you humiliated me. I let that sink in. Their faces were a mixture of confusion and dawning horror. I didn't wait for them to speak. I turned my head slightly towards the door and called out, "David, please come in." David, the old caretaker, walked in. He looked a bit bewildered, but his eyes held that same kind respect they always did. He nodded at me, then glanced at Liam and Chloe, his face unreadable. I placed my hand on the deed. "This," I continued, looking directly at Liam and Chloe, "is David. He's been the heart of this guest house for years. And this," I said, sweeping my hand over the deed, then gesturing to the walls around us, "this guest house and everything in it will be his and his family's when I am gone." Liam gasped. Chloe made a small, choked sound. "Someone who gave me a glass of water when my own son denied me dignity," I explained, my voice still firm, but with a slight tremor of emotion I couldn't quite hide. "The inheritance you so desperately wanted. Liam, Chloe, the one you tried to steal from me by declaring me incompetent, by humiliating me in front of strangers, it now has a rightful owner." Their faces were a mask of shock, then despair, then a desperate, ugly panic. It was everything I knew they would feel. But watching them, I felt no joy, no vengeance, only a quiet, deep sense of justice. A heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The game had truly changed, and this time, it was their turn to pick up the pieces. Their faces were a mask of shock, then despair, then a desperate, ugly panic. It was everything I knew they would feel. But watching them, I felt no joy, no vengeance, only a quiet, deep sense of justice. A heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The game had truly changed, and this time it was their turn to pick up the pieces. Liam and Chloe's reaction of shock and despair was something I simply decided not to dwell on. There was no point. The words were said. The truth was out. I had made my decision. I simply stood up from the large desk, my old folder with the deed still clutched in my hand, and walked out of the administration office. I didn't look back. There was nothing left for me there, nothing but the echo of their stunned silence. In the following days, I permanently moved, not just from that office, but from my small house in the village. The house where Arthur and I had started our life, where I had sewn countless stitches, where I had meticulously saved every penny. It held so many memories, but it also held the weight of Liam's demands and the constant pressure. It was time for a new chapter. I came to the guest house, and I began to occupy the best suite, the one with a view of the sunrise. It wasn't to show off, you understand, not at all. It was simply to finally live the dream Arthur and I had built, piece by quiet piece, over so many decades. This was our place, our legacy. It was meant to be a haven, a place of peace, and now finally it was. My routine now is simple and full of a peace I haven't felt in years. I wake up each morning to the soft, rhythmic sound of the sea, a gentle murmur that lulls me into the day. No more jarring phone calls, no more dread hanging over me. I have my breakfast on the balcony, watching the sun paint the sky with its first delicate colors. The air here is clean, salty. It fills my lungs and clears my head. I spend my mornings chatting with the staff. They've truly become my new family, you see. There's the kind young woman who manages the breakfast service, always remembering my preferred tea. There's the gardener who shares tips about the coastal plants. They don't see me as the old lady who owns the place, not really. They see me as someone who trusts them, who values their hard work, and who shares a quiet moment with them each day. It's a connection that feels real, honest, and warm. David, my trusted caretaker, is now the official manager of the guest house, and he takes care of everything with a competence that truly amazes me. But more than that, he does it with such affection. He comes to me with questions, with ideas, with reports, but he doesn't treat me like a boss. He treats me like a mother he chose. There's a mutual respect, a quiet understanding between us. He understands the heart of this place just as Arthur did. He understands the dream, and he's making it flourish. I feel no hatred now, not towards Liam, not towards Chloe. Honestly, it's just a deep relief. Like a heavy cloak has been lifted from my shoulders, revealing a lightness I didn't know I was missing. I understood something profound through all this. True love, real love, is not imposed. It is not demanded with threats or accusations. And most importantly, it does not humiliate. It nurtures. It uplifts. It respects. Sometimes when I'm sitting on a balcony in the late afternoon, looking down the quiet street that leads to the guest house, I see cars similar to my son's, the familiar make, the particular shade of blue. They drive slowly, almost hesitantly, past the entrance. But he never again had the courage to stop. He never called. He never approached. He just drives by, a ghost of a past I'm leaving behind. And I'm okay with that. More than okay. I rediscovered my own strength. Not in the money I guarded or the property I owned, but in the quiet dignity of choosing. Choosing who deserves to be by my side. Choosing who I open my heart to. Choosing peace over pain. And it feels like starting over, a new kind of beginning, unhurried, with a clean soul, and the gentle sound of the sea, always near. And it feels like starting over, a new kind of beginning, unhurried, with a clean soul, and the gentle sound of the sea, always near. Looking back at my life, at my story, at everything I've been through, I see a path now, a difficult path, yes, filled with moments I wished I could erase. But it was a path that led me right here. I truly believe now that I needed to reach the very bottom of that pit of pain, that dark, lonely place, to find my way back to myself. It was only then, when I felt utterly broken, that I truly began to see the pieces I needed to put back together. Not for anyone else, but for me. It was about finding my own true north again. Often, in life, we give so much of ourselves, don't we? Especially to the people we love most, our children. We pour our energy, our time, our savings, our very hearts into them. We believe we're building something beautiful, something strong. And in that giving, in that constant outpouring, we sometimes forget to keep the most important thing for ourselves, our self-respect, our own dignity. we let others define our worth, letting them decide if we are valuable, if we are useful, if we are loved. It's a subtle erosion sometimes, so slow that you don't even notice it until one day you wake up and feel like there's nothing left of you. Now, as I sit here with the sound of the waves outside my window, I think of you. You who are listening to my words, my quiet reflection. I have to ask, have you ever felt that your worth to the people you love most was only measured by the money or help you could offer? Have you felt like your love, your attention, your very presence was only valued when it came with a price tag? It's a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it? To realize that the people. And have you, like me, ever been made to feel small so that someone else could feel big? So that they could feel powerful or important or justified in their demands? It's a cruel trick, making another person shrink so you can seem to grow. Especially when it comes from those who are supposed to lift you up, to protect you. I remember feeling like a tiny pebble, constantly being kicked around, simply because I wouldn't let myself be crushed completely. It hurts deeply. To realize that, it makes you question everything. But here's what I learned, what I want you to remember deep in your heart. It's never too late. Never, never too late to take back the reins of your own life, to draw a line in the sand, to say no more, to reclaim your voice, to stand tall again. Even if your legs are a little wobbly with age, even if your heart has been bruised, because your greatest wealth, dear friend, isn't in any bank account. It's not in possessions or in what you can give others. It's the strength you carry within. It's your own inherent dignity. It's the quiet, unwavering knowledge of your own value, independent of anyone else's opinion or demand. It's a strength that often gets overlooked, especially as we get older. People sometimes look at older folks and see only weakness, or a burden, or someone to be managed. They forget that a lifetime of experience, of love, of hardship, of joy, builds an incredible resilience. They forget that the lines on our faces tell stories, not just of age, but of battles fought and wisdom gained. We are not just our physical selves. We are our spirits, our memories, our quiet power. And that power, that dignity, can never truly be taken away unless you let it. My story is just one story, of course. But I believe these feelings, these struggles, are not unique to me. They echo in so many lives, in so many quiet homes. It took me a long time and a lot of pain to truly understand this, to understand that my worth wasn't tied to anyone else's approval or to their demands for my money. It was always there, inside me, waiting for me to acknowledge it again. And now I breathe easier. I sleep sounder. I live with a lightness that comes from knowing who I am and standing by it. I chose peace. I chose dignity. And every day, as I watch the sunrise over the sea, I know it was the right choice. It's a quiet victory, perhaps. Not one that makes headlines, but one that remakes a soul. It's a reminder that even when the world feels dark, there's always a path back to your own light, to your own truth. You just have to be brave enough to find it, and brave enough to walk it. I look at my story and see that I needed to reach the very bottom of that pit of pain, that dark, lonely place, to find my way back to myself. It was only then, when I felt utterly broken, that I truly began to see the pieces I needed to put back together. Not for anyone else, but for me. It was about finding my own true north again. Often in life, we give so much of ourselves, don't we? Especially to the people we love most, our children, our family. We pour our energy, our time, our savings, our very hearts into them. We believe we're building something beautiful, something strong. And in that giving, in that constant outpouring, we sometimes forget to keep the most important thing for ourselves, our self-respect, our own dignity. We let others define our worth, letting them decide if we are valuable, if we are useful, if we are loved. It's a subtle erosion sometimes, so slow that you don't even notice it until one day you wake up and feel like there's nothing left of you. Now, as I sit here with the sound of the waves outside my window, I think of you. You who are listening to my words, my quiet reflection. I have to ask, have you ever felt that your worth to the people you love most was only measured by the money or help you could offer? Have you felt like your love, your attention, your very presence was only valued when it came with a price tag? It's a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it? To realize that the people. And have you, like me, ever been made to feel small so that someone else could feel big, so that they could feel powerful or important or justified in their demands? It's a cruel trick, making another person shrink so you can seem to grow, especially when it comes from those who are supposed to lift you up, to protect you. I remember feeling like a tiny pebble, constantly being kicked around simply because I wouldn't let myself be crushed completely. It hurts deeply to realize that. It makes you question everything. But here's what I learned, what I want you to remember deep in your heart. It's never too late. Never, never too late to take back the reins of your own life, to draw a line in the sand, to say no more, to reclaim your voice, to stand tall again, even if your legs are a little wobbly with age, even if your heart has been bruised. Because your greatest wealth, dear friend, isn't in any bank account. It's not in possessions or in what you can give others. It's the strength you carry within. It's your own inherent dignity. It's the quiet, unwavering knowledge of your own value, independent of anyone else's opinion or demand. It's a strength that often gets overlooked, especially as we get older. People sometimes look at older folks and see only weakness, or a burden, or someone to be managed. They forget that a lifetime of experience, of love, of hardship, of joy, builds an incredible resilience. They forget that the lines on our faces tell stories, not just of age, but of battles fought and wisdom gained. We are not just our physical selves, we are our spirits, our memories, our quiet power. And that power, that dignity, can never truly be taken away unless you let it. My story is just one story, of course, but I believe these feelings, these struggles, are not unique to me. They echo in so many lives, in so many quiet homes. It took me a long time and a lot of pain to truly understand this, to understand that my worth wasn't tied to anyone else's approval or to their demands for my money. It was always there, inside me, waiting for me to acknowledge it again. And now I breathe easier. I sleep sounder. I live with a lightness that comes from knowing who I am and standing by it. I chose peace. I chose dignity. And every day as I watch the sunrise over the sea, I know it was the right choice. It's a quiet victory, perhaps, not one that makes headlines, but one that remakes a soul. It's a reminder that even when the world feels dark, there's always a path back to your own light, to your own truth. You just have to be brave enough to find it, and brave enough to walk it. And if you want to keep receiving real stories like this, pay attention. YouTube might be unsubscribing you without warning. Confirm you are still subscribed to the channel and activate the bell. Because knowing we're not alone in these struggles, that's a comfort beyond measure. It's what connects us, you see. It's how we keep supporting each other, sharing our strength, one quiet story at a time.